The erasure and colonization of womanhood through the redefinition of the word woman itself isn't about attacking individuals, groups, or denying anyone dignity or respect. It's about protecting the rights, language, boundaries, and safety of women, adult human females, and naming the very real consequences we face when our sex-based category is rewritten without our consent. So take a breath with me, because this topic is heavy, and yet it impacts every girl, every woman, every mother, and every future generation. And we've been indoctrinated to keep quiet through social backlash and slurs, but we're not advocating against any other group. We're advocating for women. And let's face it, throughout history in women's suffrage movements, we've heard the argument a million times that women's rights take away from men's rights. And now we're hearing it all over again, dressed up to look like us. Now let's talk about the importance of naming reality. Words are not decorations. They are tools that allow us to describe reality, advocate for, and protect ourselves. When we lose the ability to name a reality, we lose the ability to defend against it. For centuries, since the earliest language, the category woman has meant the same thing. It's very specific: adult, human, female. For a group of people whose bodies share predictable biological traits, reproductive capabilities, hormonal patterns, physical vulnerabilities, and traits that shape our lives in everything from healthcare to athletics to violence statistics to social expectations, regardless of our ability to reproduce. This isn't ideology. It isn't identity. This is a material, objective, and measurable reality. But in the last decade, we've watched a major shift happen. The push to redefine woman, not as a sex class, but as a gender identity, something that anyone can claim based on an internal feeling of oneself. And there is no bar, no standard, no diagnosis, no level of medical treatment for when someone can do this. And this change has enormous consequences, because while we can all proclaim that trans women are women to protect their feelings, we also need to acknowledge that predatory men exist too. And the legal loopholes in this redefinition helps them gain unfettered access to women's spaces. That affects all of us. And if trans women are in our spaces, that means trans women are included. Now, the core problem is de-anchoring womanhood from females. If the definition of woman expands to include males, then the word no longer refers to a sex-based class at all. We cannot protect a group that doesn't exist. If we cannot name the group, how can we protect it? Suddenly, the term becomes vague, subjective, malleable, open to interpretation, self-declaration, and when that happens, a category that once described a shared biological and social reality begins dissolving into abstraction. This isn't inclusion, it's erasure through conceptual expansion, stretching a definition so far that it loses all meaning. Colonization is when a dominant group takes over a marginalized group. So let's talk about their power. Women, meaning female people, have historically had less physical, political, and economic power than men. And womanhood throughout history has been a category shaped around female biology, primarily, female vulnerability, secondarily, and female socialization, tertiary. And historically, the dominant group, males, is now permitted to enter this marginalized category through self-identification alone. There's no shared biology, no shared risk profile, no shared reproductive burden, no shared socialization. They simply proclaim it at any age, any life stage, and suddenly it becomes reality. No physical appearance standards, no surgery, no medical treatment of any kind is required for it to be true. Any man, any day, anywhere can self-identify as a woman, and it is so. They instantly gain full authority to claim the name woman, to speak as a woman, to represent women, and even to dictate what womanhood means. This is why many women describe the phenomenon as colonization. It's a powerful group entering a less powerful group's territory, redefining it, reshaping it, and invalidating the right of the original group to even object. Women are being told they must surrender. The language that names their reality is no longer valid. And if they don't, they're labeled hateful or bigoted or even stamped with the slur. The colonizer does not merely arrive. The colonizer demands obedience. The loss of female-only spaces and their protections has already begun. Sex-segregated spaces existed for a reason, because female biology creates specific vulnerabilities and risks. That's not prejudice, that's safety. Now, with the redefinition of woman, male bodies are now entering women's shelters. Male bodies are being housed in women's prisons. Male athletes are entering female sports categories. And male-bodied people are being placed in female hospital wards, sometimes even performing intimate care without the informed consent of their female patients. In many of these cases, women's objections are not only dismissed, but they're punished. Women are being told that their discomfort is invalid, their fear is invalid, their boundaries are invalid. And yet every one of these spaces was created because of male violence statistics, not female violence statistics. When we allow males into women's spaces, even those who identify as women, we are not creating inclusion. We are introducing the very risk that those spaces were built to protect against. And women lose not only safety, but the legal ability to insist on it. Another form of erasure that's happening is linguistic, replacing the word woman with terms like birthing person, menstruator, uterus havers, chest feeder, egg producer. It does not neutralize the language. It dehumanizes women. And all the laws that we have to protect them were built around the word woman, not adult human female. No other oppressed class in history is treated this way. We instantly recognize dehumanizing language when it's used in reference of others. But for some reason, women are accepting it for themselves. Why? Why is it okay to dehumanize women? The word woman included our connection to humanity. Now we need a new word. We don't call gay people same-sex attracted units. Only women, only female people are reduced to body parts and functionality in order to avoid acknowledging that certain biological functions are exclusive to females. And that is erasure. It's also erasing the LGB, but that's another topic we'll get into later. This is a direct consequence of redefining woman to include males. Because if anyone can be a woman, then female biology must be linguistically detached from the word woman. So the language gets stripped away and women lose their words, their identity, their humanity, and their ability to articulate their own needs. The loss of humanity means the loss of human rights under customary international humanitarian law, or the IHL, Rule 119, which specifies that women who are deprived of their liberty must be held in quarters separate from those of men. Note, they did not state female and male. They said women and men. But if women and men are now identity classes, then male and female no longer matter. So, because the word man and the word woman used to be tied to biological sex, it had meaning. But now male bodies claiming female identity are also called women, so they are now housed with women. defeating the entire purpose of the original legislation. The political class, women, has completely dissolved. Women's rights relied on that idea that women are a distinct group, that women share sex-based disadvantages, and that women have specific protections for that reason. But if a man can become a woman by declaration alone, then crime statistics become unreliable, medical research becomes inaccurate, demographic tracking collapses, policy becomes incoherent, and legal protections become unenforceable. You cannot protect a category that no longer has boundaries. You cannot measure a class that cannot be clearly defined. And you cannot fight oppression when you are forbidden from naming the oppressor. This is not progress. This is regression dressed up as compassion. Silencing women's dissent is one of the clearest markers of a colonizing force. Colonizers have historically pushed for suppression of the voices of the colonized. And right now, women who raise concerns, even calmly, respectfully, factually, they're being attacked, harassed, deplatformed, fired, doxxed, threatened, and even assaulted. Now, women are told, you are hateful, you are transphobic, your boundaries are bigotry. You must comply. But consent that cannot be withdrawn is not consent. A boundary that cannot be expressed is not a boundary. And a group that is not allowed to speak is definitely not equal. This is the heart of the issue. Women did not consent to the redefinition of womanhood. It was imposed. And when women push back, they are punished. That is the textbook definition of erasure and the lived experience of colonization. This conversation is not about denying respect to anyone. Every human being deserves dignity, safety, and compassion. But dignity is not a zero-sum game, and women should not be asked to erase themselves in order to validate someone else. Womanhood is not a costume. It's not a feeling. It's not a stereotype about our expected feminine appearance. Woman is not an identity. It is a biological fact that people can't just opt into. Cisgender is an identity, meaning someone identifies as the sex that they're assigned at birth. But identity doesn't apply to all. Babies are still girls and boys before they can form an identity. Masculine women who identify more closely with men still understand that they are women, because womanhood isn't a stereotype. It's a biological classification for a specific group of adult humans. Female. Womanhood is rooted in female biology, female embodiment, and female lived experience. And it deserves protection in language, in law, and in culture. We can be kind without surrendering reality. We can be respectful without abandoning women. We can honor others without erasing ourselves. And that begins by refusing to give up the word that names our body, our history, our struggles, and our existence. Woman. So what do we do about it? We need to set a minimum bar for womanhood before entry can be legally proclaimed. If trans women are women, then they need a medical examination from a doctor declaring that they are sterile. Why? Because if there's one thing all women have in common, it's that we can't impregnate anyone. So let's introduce legislation that requires licensed medical doctors, not a psychiatrist, to declare sterility. Someone who will stake their personal reputation, their medical license, and possibly even their life through capital punishment if a trans woman goes on to impregnate anyone. only then should they be allowed to redefine themselves as a woman. Ideally, bottom surgery needs to be required, but at minimum, they shouldn't be able to impregnate anyone. And this is only required if they want to take over the label of woman. If they are not willing to go through that to make sure that they are at least on par with a woman who can't reproduce, then they need to be labeled a feminine man. Sorry, but that's just how it is. You are not a woman until you are incapable of impregnating someone. And that is the baseline. If we don't at least have that bar, then you are now violating women's spaces as a feminine man.